Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Now let's go to Kansas City, home of GPC's hidden studio. Here's your host, Cole Carmody.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to another edition of Fighting Ever Fighting. I'm Cole Carmody from GoPowercat.com, and today we are going to take another turn. For the first time in the history of this podcast, we're not talking to football players. We're talking to baseball players. And more specifically, we're talking to Blair DeBord, who is a member of the last time Kansas State actually made a super regional in 2013. Obviously, they just made it this year after they won the Fayetteville Regional, beating Southeast Missouri State in the final and Arkansas in the semifinals. And Blair was on the last team to make it to a super regional. So we'll take a nice trip down memory lane. But along with playing at Kansas State, Blair has also spent some time at a school not too far down I-70 as his current job at the University of Missouri in the Mizzou athletic department. First off, Blair, thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's been on short notice, but when Kansas State decides to do fun things, we have to talk to fun people.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Cole. I'm excited to talk to you today, and really cool experience for the baseball team just getting to win the Fayetteville Regional and go to a super regional. And there was a text chain that was going back and forth with a lot of the guys that were on the 13 team, talking about how special that time was and how proud of the program we are now. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, you and I were talking a little bit before we started recording, but why don't you let the folks know, K-State folks love to hear what K-Staters are up to now. You recently accepted a new position about a year ago at Mizzou. What is new in your life, and basically what has led to you to the point to where you are now working at the former rival of your former rival now is your current employer?
Yeah, so ever since I got done playing, I've been working in college athletics. I was working at K-State in the Ahern Fund, and fortunate to work for some really incredible people. Chad Weiberg, Laird Veatch, who's now my boss again, John Curry, Reed Sigmund, a lot of those guys. And so it kind of set me off on this track to work in college athletics because it had such a profound impact on my life and a lot of the people I care about's life. And so worked at K-State and then worked at Tennessee for a period of time, UNLV in Las Vegas, Memphis, and then now back in the Midwest at the University of Missouri. And my wife, Ellen, and I are ecstatic about, our time so far in Columbia. We had a pretty good year last year in football and softball and gymnastics. And so we're excited about raising our family in Columbia. We have 2 young daughters, and we're expecting a third child. And so, really excited that we're so close to home and being able to see family. And, there's a lot of Midwestern flair to our life right now. So we really enjoy it.
Well, welcome back to the Midwest. You and I were talking a little bit off air, and Curry Sexton is your brother-in-law. So for the folks who are not aware, we have now had 2 members, or the first 2 guests on season 2 are in the same family. They see each other at family functions. Yeah. How crazy is that? This is the second time in 2 weeks that Jake Waters' wedding is getting brought up on the show. So congratulations, Jake. You are now a popular man. I guess I want to start there, Blair, because that time period in your life and in so many other people's life, that time from 2011 to 2014 in general in Manhattan had to have been crazy, between what football was doing, winning the Big 12 championship and making and having all the success that they did, basketball winning a Big 12 championship, and then you guys, your junior season, making it 3 titles in one season with you guys claiming that Big 12 championship. Just, maybe not necessarily just that year, but for those 4 years, just how incredible were the vibes for you as maybe someone who was able to watch what football and basketball was doing and obviously carry it over into baseball?
Yeah. It was a special time in Manhattan, Kansas. I obviously grew up there. And so the allure of playing for your hometown team is always, trying to be a part of turning something around, right? That's what I grew up watching. I grew up watching Bill Snyder turn the football program around. And then I saw, Bob Huggins and Frank Martin and then Bruce Weber turn the basketball program around. And it just felt like something special was going on when I was getting recruited that Coach Hill and those guys were doing. And so I wanted to be a part of it. And, I grew up in Manhattan during the summer going to the College World Series a lot. Obviously always wanted to play professionally. But really, I felt like a career milestone would be able to play in the College World Series. Obviously didn't reach that goal, but I always wanted to play for a place that I felt like, hey, it was a realistic possibility that we could do that, right? And I could be part of something. And going into my senior year, K-State went to their first regional ever in 2009. And that was the first kind of glimpse that it could happen at K-State. And so, they did a great job of recruiting me, and it was, Coach Hill and actually Andy Sawyers, who's the head coach of SEMO, and Sean McCann, who's an assistant at Tennessee. All those guys were really impactful in my choosing Kansas State. And then, so it really felt like there was a vision there. And so, my time in Manhattan, there was just a lot of success happening, whether it be basketball, football, baseball. We had some regional appearances prior to that. A funny story about that year, football wins the Big 12, right? And then basketball follows it up. And I'm in a business class. I can't remember what it was, but it was in Calvin Hall, and it was with Ryan Mueller. And basketball had just won the Big 12 championship, and Ryan, kind of joking, was like, okay, now you guys have to win the Big 12 championship. I always remember that. And then we were kind of sitting there, and he was like, wait, do you think you could actually do that? I was like, I don't know, man. The Big 12 baseball is so good. And,
right.
A lot of things have to go right. And we just played really great baseball down the stretch. And it was fun to be kind of the cap of what was just an incredible athletic year for Kansas State at that time. And, it's a period of time in my life that I'll always remember very fondly.
I mean, me too. I will not tell you how old I was, because I let's just put it this way. Okay, I wasn't in high school yet. I'm not trying to date you, Blair, but I will tell you that I remember watching you guys, and that was really my first introduction to college baseball.
Sure.
Those people who know me know, like, I'm a coach now. I very much involved, and I've really followed college baseball ever since. But I remember watching you guys play, and I remember specifically watching the regional,
Sure.
before the super regional. Obviously, we'll talk about that in Corvallis, but I remember seeing Manhattan host a regional, and to kind of think about where that stadium was then to where the stadium is today. It's honestly kind of crazy. Do you happen to remember? Did they bring in bleachers? I know that there was some discussion. Did they bring in outside bleachers for that regional?
Oh yeah. So our baseball administrator is a guy named Casey Scott, and Casey is still the baseball administrator there. He runs event operations and facilities and a lot of stuff there on operations. And so they brought in some bleachers on what is now the berm. And if he watches this, he will laugh, because these were this setup of these bleachers was not safe. I don't know who signed off on that, but apparently a structural engineer thought it was good, and it was fine. But you could tell that that the administration really, really invested and was excited about, presenting just as good of an experience to host a regional as we could at K-State at the time. And, to fans' credit, I mean, the environment those couple of days was just electric. And I think that's the one thing about just college fans in general, but my time being a K-State fan growing up and then playing for K-State, K-State fans do a great job of showing up and supporting. And the handful of times that I was back this spring for different family things or whatever, that I was able to check out a game, the passion is still there. It was pretty cool. So the regional appearance in Manhattan was awesome. And I won't mention him by name, but one of the opposing pitchers on another team during that regional was a friend of some of the guys on our team. And we actually ran into him the day before, and they were really upset that they had not gotten to host that regional. And they were telling us about how excited they were that they got this regional, because they felt like it was a good draw for them. Now, mind you, all of us play on K-State at the time, And so, that provided a little bit of extra oomph for us as well. So but yeah, it was great. And we had so many really gritty competitors on our team that really came out in that weekend, whether it's Ross Kivett or Jared King or Tanner Witt or Shane Conlon or Austin Fisher, any of those guys, we were all really excited about the opportunity to play in front of the home crowd.
A pretty impressive list of guys you just brought up. I mean, I know Ross Kivett obviously is still in baseball. He's coaching down there at Houston. Shane Conlon spent some time at K-State for a little bit. I mean, just obviously yourself, like so many people are still involved in collegiate athletics and involved in baseball. I think that really goes to show what Coach Hill set. The standard that Coach Hill set. And I was kind of looking up some stats before this, and I want to make sure I get these right. Okay. Did you know that you finished second in K-State career history in hit by pitches?
I
did. You know that? Okay.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah,
you were
I was
a catcher.
I guess. Yeah.
You're a catcher. I think most catchers crowd the plate and they just like to get hit. I'm curious though, because being a catcher in a regional like that, obviously it didn't matter for you guys because you went 3-0 and that was the region, as I have to adjust my camera here, and that was the regional, and you guys swept your way through it just like K-State just did. But I mean, was there ever any thought of like, crap, if we lose this game, now I got to get back behind the plate on turf? It's probably 100 degrees. I mean, nowadays, right, in doubleheaders, catchers, they're not catching both games. I mean, was that ever going to be an option, or was that just something with Coach Hill where he's like, no, I'm not even worried about your catching both games?
Yeah. I think I think all of us at that time, myself included, we were just so excited about the opportunity that it didn't matter how hot it was. It didn't matter the conditions surrounding it. It didn't matter if we were hurt. I mean, we had guys that were hurt all over the field. Like Austin Fisher, I think, had an actual hairline fracture in his back that he was playing through. And so, all of us were dealing with various ailments. And I mean, you got, it was hot, right? But at the same time, you got like cold towels in the dugout and everything. So we were all just, I mean, when that adrenaline gets going and these guys get into these highly competitive, situations, I mean, everybody's tired. Everybody's, it's the end of everybody's season. And it really comes down to who can grit through the adversity at that time and fight through it. But I didn't want to come out at that time. It didn't really matter. So, and we had great teams in that regional. I remember when the regional was announced, our 4 seed was Wichita State. Yeah. We would play in midweeks and they would be tight games. The 3 seed was Bryant, who I think had won their league. They had 40 wins. They had won their league regular season and conference tournament. And then the 2 seed was Arkansas, who was the preseason number 1 team in the nation. And they were good. And so, we felt like we had our work cut out for us, and we were excited about the opportunity. And I think there was probably, some anxiety and some nervousness about, you don't want to be the team that gets the host and doesn't get through to the super regional, right? Especially in our situation. We did not want to be the team that gets the host and falls short and not get to the super regional round. So.
Yeah, I mean, well, you brought up Arkansas. We might as well go there. I'm sure you were watching intently, not just being an alum, but I mean, being a fellow SEC school. You've been able to see what Arkansas has done with that baseball program, the way that they're able to recruit at a high level, the way that they're able to consistently be in that position to host regionals and supers. I guess I'll just ask you here. I mean, you've seen them throughout the whole entire season. That was a little unexpected. Not maybe that K-State was able to beat them, but the fact that they didn't even make a regional final.
Yeah, I mean, these seasons are long, and these teams are really good and stacked with talent. When you get towards the end of the year, everybody is good. And sometimes you're playing your best baseball of the year at the end of the year, and sometimes you aren't. And I have a lot of respect for the baseball program at Arkansas and Dave Van Horn and those assistants there. I've known of them or known them for a long time. I mean, they have really good players, and baseball is a game that is an opportunistic game, and what wasn't like kind of the big uppercut in that game. Wasn't there like a 3-run home run where Culpepper hit like an oppo jack, off of Hagen Smith, who was like almost untouchable all season long in the SEC. I mean, I watched him pitched against the Mizzou Tigers, and that guy was like ready to play in the big leagues that night, and he still is, right? But you also have a really good player in Culpepper, right, and Kalen that is at the plate. They both played on Team USA together, and it was just very like baseball is just in my opinion, it is one of the most romantic sports, and it always seems like those situations where a Kalen Culpepper, who played for Team USA, is hitting against Hagen Smith, who also pitched for Team USA, and like it's a mano-a-mano, and it's a great story, and that was just another chapter in kind of K-State baseball history that was pretty cool.
So let's take it back to 2013 with you guys. You win your regional, and then you have to get set for a super regional. And I mean, let's just call it how it is. In baseball, you're supposed to play the game every day. You play the game every single day. Now, maybe if you're not playing in midweek, you might have a few days off, but that's typically towards the end of the season. Well, you guys then get set for a super regional and have to wait for, practically a whole week, get on a plane, have to adjust your body to go up to Corvallis. And oh, by the way, they've got this slugger who still plays in Major League Baseball by the name of Michael Conforto. What was the mindset for you guys? Because K-State's dealing with the exact same thing right now, having to go out to Virginia. Maybe not as talented Virginia team as Oregon State was at the time, but still, I mean, a top 10 team in the nation. Yeah. You guys were faced with the exact same scenario. What was your guys' mindset going into that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, first you're so excited. You play your whole career wanting to be in this situation. Like you always want to have a chance to go play in Omaha. And so, the practices and the vibes, I guess, as you would say, around the practices and around the building and everything was just incredible. I mean, everybody was so ready for the opportunity to go try to go to the College World Series, because it's everything you ever dreamed about, right? You always want to be in a situation where like the at bats or the pitches or things matter on like a bigger scale than you're used to, right? Or it's meaning something more than just yourself. And so that's kind of I think I speak for the whole team, that we were all just so excited about the opportunity, and it really wasn't about Oregon State or the players that they had on their team. Everybody is good at that time. You're the only 16 teams left, right? And so every team has pros, every team has cons, right? And we just felt really good that we had. I mean, I think our hitting statistics, we were the number 2 rated offense in the country. I think our team batting average was like 310 or something. I mean, 310. And so we just knew who we were as a team, and we knew we were going to have to grind, and we knew we were going to have to get through some adversity, and we were excited about the opportunity to do it in Corvallis. Now, a lot of us had never played baseball in Corvallis, right? We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And I'm willing to guess most of the guys on the K-State team that are going to Virginia have never played in Charlottesville, right? But those are incredible environments with a lot of players, and don't forget too that there are players on the K-State team that play in leagues, whether it's Team USA or the Northwoods or the Cape Cod League or the California League or whatever any of these leagues are now, and they play with guys from Virginia, right? Because you can only have a certain number of players on each team during the summer that are from the same school. So they've probably played against or played with or on the same team as some of the Virginia guys, and they know what they're getting into. And the reality is when you get to that point, everybody's good and everybody's looking forward to the challenge of competing against each other.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
I think you bring up a great point about the competition, because a lot of the times we don't talk enough about that. And it's really the only sport where these guys are seen the same players, only in a completely different environment. I mean, you're not going to see the Rodney Magruders of the world go and play against, those guys from Baylor. You're not going to see, if you want to take it for today, you're not going to see the Avery Johnsons go play against the Brady Cooks in a completely different league.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen.
Right.
But that happens with college baseball. And
Yeah.
a lot of these guys know each other. They're friends with each other, and they've been playing with each other since high school. I think that's another thing that maybe folks don't realize. And I'm sure you can attest to this, but like the guys that you played with and the guys that you play against at the college level, you've known about for a really long time. And so it's going to be interesting because now with the technology, I mean, the scouting that these guys have is next level. I mean, they have video on every single pitcher. And so scouting for baseball is completely different than scouting for any other sport. I'm excited to watch because I love just college baseball in general, but super regionals, I think, are probably some of the most exciting events in all of college sports. I know obviously it didn't end well for you guys that season, but that weekend had to have been a blast.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember, we got through the first night, and so we win the first night, right? And we kind of come back like we had done all year, and like Austin Fisher and I had this moment, walking to our hotel room, that was just like, oh my gosh, we are literally 9 innings away from playing in Omaha. Like, because people will say we want to win a national championship, or say they want to go to Omaha, or say you want to play in the Final Four. And I think everybody believes that, and you're fighting really hard. But then when you're like right there, there's this realization that like, oh my gosh, we are right here. And I remember in game 3, I think Austin and Ross turned a double play, or I can't quite remember exactly what happened. But the level of play in that game 3, so we win the first one, right? And then we lose the second one. But the level of play in game 3 was just like electric. It was the most incredible baseball that I'd ever been a part of. People were making great plays all over the place. The crowd was all over it. And it was just a really special environment. And, we talk about in college athletics a lot on the administrative side, providing world-class or experiences for your student athletes. And so that happens in many ways. That's, the academic support that they get. That's the student athlete development support, the leadership development support, the nutrition, the strength and conditioning, the coaching that they get, the NIL that they get now, right? All these things go into this world-class experience. But the number one indicator of whether or not a student athlete is having a good experience or a bad experience is about wins and losses in the field. Like, your experience as a student athlete holistically is better when you're winning versus when you're losing, right? Because at the end of the day, this is still a competition. That's why we play. We have winners and losers. And when you're winning, it's better. And so all of that being said, when you are at kind of the pinnacle of what your sport is in college, and people are flying around and making incredible plays, or everybody, like, the zone is the umpire behind the plate is calling a good zone, and you're seeing good balls and strikes, and everybody is competing at a really high level. It's just really special. And that's what we experienced in Corvallis. Unfortunately, we were not able to close it out and get the Cats to Omaha. But I think this is a good group of guys, and they compete really hard. And honestly, I texted Casey Scott, or I told Casey Scott when I was watching, I think when K-State played Texas on like a Thursday or a Friday, I was in town. I can't quite remember. So they won one and they lost the next 2. But when they won the first one, I told Casey that I felt like the offense, at least, had a lot of the same like characteristics that our 13 team had. It felt like they really competed through the lineup. There was a lot of really tough outs, and guys were putting good swings on things, and they were just really competitive. And they went through a stretch, as all teams do, where they struggle a little bit. People forget that we were like a 500 team in the first quarter of the season. And then we walked off Texas Tech at home, and then kind of everything started to roll right. Now they were hurt at the beginning this year, and then they kind of picked up some speed, and then they kind of fell back, and then they picked up some speed, and they kind of fell back. And now they feel like, watching, it looks like they're playing some of their best baseball of the year, which is what you want to be doing. Ultimately, as a coach in a program, regardless of sport, you want to be playing your best in that sport at the end of the year. And it looks like that's what the team is doing right now.
When you look at that team and compare it to the team that you were on, I know you just talked about that, but I mean, do you think that this might be the most talented group that K-State has had since that 2013 team?
Well, I haven't probably watched as much K-State baseball, since I got done, just because of my job and kind of moving around and being really attentive to the place that you're at. I would say that they have some pretty incredible talent on this team. They have two guys that played for Team USA, and they have guys that have they have some guys that are transferring in. They've got some freshmen, and so I mean they are, they're a really solid club that is going to go play another really solid club in Virginia, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how it kind of shakes out, because I think. Like you look all over the regionals and super regionals, and there's some teams that you might not have thought were going to be there. There's some teams that are there. There's some teams that are in supers that you kind of maybe thought all year were going to be there, but then you kind of weren't quite sure. And that's what makes college baseball great, is that the seasons go in waves, and very rarely is the best team in the country at the beginning of the year the best team in the country at the end of the year.
Well, Blair, I'm going to leave you with this, because I think I speak for all of K-State fans and people who watch that team when I say congratulations, first of all, on an outstanding baseball season that literally K-State fans are still talking about to this day. I mean, 11 years ago on Sunday, when Kansas State beat Arkansas, you guys clinched your ticket to the super regionals, and I'm sure that you still talk about those memories. Obviously that's what we did today. So I appreciate you taking the time to take a trip down memory lane, reflect on your time at K-State, and help us preview what is surely going to be an exciting weekend of baseball, because it is the best time of the year if you're a college baseball fan, and ultimately it's the end of the year for guys like you in college athletics. It's the end of the sports year. I know that the grind never stops, but there will be no games after the end of June until
that's right.
August.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, first, thank you for having me, and thanks for reaching out and setting this up. I what you guys do at GoPowercat is really fun, and I'm very appreciative of groups like yours kind of driving fandom in college athletics. I think it's one thing that makes it really special. We have a great group at Power Mizzou that does the same thing for us, and those groups are really important to college athletics. But I think ultimately, college athletics is about kids that work their whole lives, whether it be to get a high level degree and compete at the highest level, or go on to be a pro in something other than sports, as the NCAA tagline says, right? And it's just really cool to see kids live out their dreams. I mean, I remember playing wiffle ball in the front yard with my brother Brooks, and we would always put ourselves in the situation like, okay, you got a guy in second and third and 2 outs. This is to send your team to Omaha, right? Well, the kids on the field that are playing this weekend, they will be living out some of those situations that they've been thinking about playing in their whole lives. And so, I can speak to I can speak from experience that the guys on the field, no matter what happens this weekend or how the games go, there's nobody in the whole world that wants to win 2 games this weekend more than all of the guys that are playing. And so I'm excited to watch it. And I like competition. I like sports competition, no matter the sport. I like watching our student athletes grind through adversity. And I'm excited to tune in this weekend and watch all the games.
Blair, you can bust out your purple. I won't tell anybody. Okay, you can wear it. You don't have to let anybody know. Just wear some purple for us. It'll all be good.
Now, I will say, this transition to Mizzou, most of the time when I meet people, they're like, "Oh, you went to K-State," and I was like, "Yeah, but we hate the same ugly bird."
There you
And
go.
so, it gives me some points initially with the Mizzou folks. So, yeah. Well, actually, I will be in Florida with Curry and the rest of our family. We're going on a little trip, and so with little kids, so we'll tune in, and I know he'll be cheering loud for him. So
there you go. Thank you so much, Blair. Enjoy your vacation, and thanks for taking the time. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right, see you, Cole.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.